Have you ever made a decision that made other people raise their eyebrows, but deep down you knew it was the right decision? That's what this episode is about. Taking leaps when no one else sees the landing. Hi, it's Dustin, and today I'm doing something a little different. This solo episode is the departure from my usual interview format, but after some recent conversations, one stuck with me and I wanted to share why. That conversation was with photographer Dwight Carter. There were so many things that resonated with me in that episode, but one thing that really stood out, the way Dwight repeatedly took chances even when the outcome wasn't guaranteed. He took a leap by going to photography school. Then he left everything in California and moved to the East Coast, betting on his own potential. That courage, that willingness to leap into the unknown reminded me of a leap I once took. One not everyone understood at the time. After I earned my MBA, I made a decision that surprised some, but before I tell you what I did, let me give you a little background. My plan for getting my MBA started back in Chicago when I was working at the Chicago Board of Trade on the bond floor. It was an intense environment. I learned so much from that experience and noticed something that kept coming up time and time again in all of my conversations. The people who were successful had two things in common. They had MBAs and they had international experience. From then on, I started creating a path that would lead me to my own version of success in this industry. So fast forward, I had the MBA, but now I wanted and needed the international experience. When I received job offers from investment banking and consulting firms before graduation, I remember asking those companies if they had international postings available. These were global firms, yet they all said that I would have to wait a few years before even being considered for an international assignment. In other words, not right now. That didn't feel right to me, especially when I saw my classmates getting offered international assignments, sometimes without even asking for them. One classmate was so surprised by her offer to work abroad, she turned to us for advice. She didn't even have a passport. And yet that same company had turned down my request, even though I'd already traveled internationally and had the interest and background. It became very clear if I wanted this experience, I would have to create it myself. I had a choice: follow the traditional path or follow the one I had envisioned years earlier, even if no one else could see it. So I made my move. I moved abroad. I didn't have a job. Student loan repayments were looming, and I had turned down several solid offers in the U.S. Why? Because years earlier, I had envisioned the kind of life I wanted to build, and it didn't include waiting around for someone to give me permission to pursue it. So I packed up and I moved to Denmark. I didn't speak the language. I had almost no network. I was learning Danish from a CD and a book, all the while sending out resumes, networking, hand delivering applications, doing anything I could to make anything happen. And every single day, the rejection letters rolled in. I remember so many times adding another rejection letter to the drawer I kept them in, and it just kept filling up. There were days I sat alone in my tiny little apartment looking at yet another rejection letter and wondering if I'd made a huge mistake. I had turned down so many great opportunities with some fantastic organizations, and now those student loans were coming. It was very hard. But then one day, finally, I got a call. A firm wanted to interview me for a position selling their financial terminals. I knew the product very well. I'd used it on the exchange floor, and I knew I could do the job. But it wasn't the kind of finance work that I was looking for. Then another interview came, this time with a large shipping and container company. I thought the interview went well, but later I found out something unexpected. That particular program had a very strict age guideline, and it was designed for recent undergrads. Because I had prior work experience, they were worried that I would have to unlearn what I already knew. That was so disappointing. Not because I thought I was overqualified, but because the very thing I worked so hard to earn was now being used as a reason to disqualify me. There were so many days I questioned everything. Did I make a huge mistake? Was this dream too big for someone like me? Most of all, would I end up jobless and unable to repay my student loan? But I reminded myself I wasn't just chasing a job. I was designing a life, my life, one where I made the decisions, one where I stretched my limits, not lived inside someone else's. Eventually, I landed a role in investment banking at a fantastic bank. That opportunity helped me understand the Danish work culture and the Danes themselves. And yes, I learned to speak and write Danish because it was part of my employment contract. I was forbidden to speak to anyone in investment banking in English. You can imagine how quiet I was those first few weeks. That leap opened the door to another role, this time in Frankfurt, Germany. Not any of this would have happened if I had waited for permission. The irony is, the very companies that extended job offers to me before graduation and told me to wait a few years for an international assignment, by the time I returned to the U.S., those companies weren't offering international assignments at all. Why? Because the global economy had shifted. So if I had waited, followed the rules, stayed the course, I would have missed my chance altogether. Sometimes the opportunity you're waiting for won't be there later. You have to take it when it's yours to take. That's why Dwight's story stuck with me, especially the part where he was in line for a promotion until 𝗘𝗽𝗶𝘀𝗀𝗧 arrived and took a spot as an assistant. You may not recognize that name, but Claude's father was Pablo Picasso. Claude jumped the line. Dwight lost his job. That moment could have ended his dream. Instead, it redirected him and became a pivotal turning point in his career. Rejection doesn't always mean you're off course. Sometimes it means you're about to take a new one. Looking back, my own leap seems like a tidy narrative, but it wasn't. It was frustrating, overwhelming at times, especially trying to do daily tasks in a new language. I failed a lot, but I kept getting back up. Eventually, things started to fall into place, and I realized I hadn't just moved abroad. I had rediscovered myself. I was resilient, resourceful, and unafraid to live on my own terms. Had I not made that choice, I probably would have taken a job in Houston, Chicago, Dallas, or even New York, like everyone expected. And maybe I'd still be there, wondering, what if? Although it was probably one of the most challenging periods of my life, I learned so much, not just professionally, but personally. Because I had challenged myself, I accomplished what I set out to do, and I did it well. But the real reward wasn't just professional. It's something deeper, something I carry with me to this day. The knowledge that when I step outside my comfort zone, I grow in ways I never could have imagined. Like Dwight, I learned that sometimes the detour is the actual path. His story reminded me of that, and maybe my story reminds you of what you are capable of. So let me ask you, what have you done that's gone against the grain? What leap did you take that changed your path? Even if others didn't understand it at the time. And if you haven't taken that leap yet, what's holding you back? Let me know your version of this, It doesn't have to be moving abroad. Maybe you change careers. Maybe you finally pursued a creative passion. These choices matter. They become the fabric of who we are. If any part of this story reminds you of your own turning point, send me a message or leave a comment. I'd love to hear it. And if you missed the episode with Dwight Carter, I'll link it in the show notes. It's a great one. And if you ever felt like you were one decision away from a completely different life, this one's for you. I plan to keep doing more of these reflections because every conversation with a guest teaches me something about them and about myself. Until next time, take care. Bye. Hey, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit subscribe. Leave a quick rating, preferably a 5-star one, and pass it along to a friend. It really helps us grow the community when you share these stories with more amazing people like you. Thanks for hanging out. I'll catch you next time on Dustin's Kaleidoscope. Bye.